Hey folks, Professor Finn here, and today we're going to be talking about pathology. So, in continuing with our lecture series, we're going to be diving into Pathology Microbiology for Funeral Service Students by Mullins. There are two books on the market. There is an older edition with a purple cover, there is a newer edition with a red and tan cover. This lecture is can be used for both of those editions. So it doesn't matter if you have an older edition, newer edition, the information should be largely the same, but it has been updated from its original to the more modern edition. So if you're using one of those older editions and you see some information that's not there, you might want to make a note of that because of the fact that it is coming from the newer edition. So as always, folks, like, share, subscribe, share the lectures with a friend, and let's go ahead and get into Introduction to Pathology. Now, the way this book is laid out, at the beginning of every single chapter, there's going to be some important definitions. And these are things that you should note card. These are things that you should review on a regular basis. Anytime you sit down, run about 10, 15 note cards so that you are getting the terms into your head, because pathology is full of terms. So first up, we have humors and disease, the precursor of modern medicine. So we have Hippocrates, who was considered the father of medicine. He was born in the island of Kos, or this is in the nation of Greece, around 450 BC, and he developed the Hippocratic approach to the study of disease. He was the first to challenge religious beliefs as to diseases and causes. For example, epilepsy was a form of divine revelation. He argued for a naturalistic approach, and he formed the basis for both modern ethics of medicine and treatment of disease. So he proposed that there were humors, the basic fluids of the body: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile or serum. And Hippocrates argued that disease was the result of imbalances in natural fluids of the body. The imbalance of humors was believed to result from wounds, smells, sounds, sights, and pursuit of indulgences such as sexual pleasures. And realistically, he is not far from the truth. You know, stabs and blunt trauma can cause exsanguination. Smells can affect your neurological system. So he was pretty much right on point. Now we jump forward nearly 2,000 years. We have Rudolf Virchow, 1858, believed that one diseased cell created another, and this is formed in the Latin phrase omni cellula a cellula, all cells arise from cells. He argued that disease was not an affliction of the body at large or the body's humor, but rather that disease cells resulted from already diseased cells. And he died in 1902 when he fell boarding a streetcar. Rather, poor end to the guy. So when we look at categories of disease, we have deaths due to microorganisms, and some examples of that: AIDS, tuberculosis, flu; deaths due to degenerative pathological disorders such as heart disease or stroke; and deaths due to byproducts of the social environment: suicide, murder, and vehicular accidents. Within pathology, we have the term pathology, which literally means the study of suffering, logos being the Greek term for study of, and pathos being the word for suffering. It incorporates aspects of clinical practice and basic science. It studies etiology and pathogenesis. Etiology is the underlying cause of disease, and pathogenesis is the mechanism that results in the manifestations of signs and symptoms in the body. Embalmers are interested in both the etiology and pathogenesis, because pathological disorders often inhibit proper distribution and diffusion of embalming chemicals and may require alternative techniques. Plan of study. Structure and function are closely related in the body, so pathology focuses largely on changes in structure and function. Pathologists use contemporary molecular, microbiological, and immunological techniques to study the changes that occur in cells, tissues, and organs. Two main divisions of pathology we're going to look at are general pathology and special or systemic pathology. General pathology focuses on cellular and tissue responses to pathologic stimuli and basically deals with the study of widespread processes of disease such as inflammation, degeneration, necrosis or cellular death, cellular repair without specific reference to an organ or an organ system. Whereas systemic pathology specifically features a disease in relation to particular organs or organ systems. So within the umbrella of systemic pathology, we have pathological anatomy or morbid anatomy, which is the study of structural changes in the body caused by disease. It includes gross pathology and histopathology, study of changes in the structure of the body readily seen with the unaided eye as a result of disease. So gross pathology, the study of changes in the structure of the body readily seen with the unaided eye as a result of disease. We also have histopathology or microscopic pathology, study of microscopic changes that cells, tissues, and organs undergo as a result of disease, and surgical pathology, study of tissue specimens excised surgically during operations. We continue with special pathology with clinical pathology, study of disease by means of body secretions, excretions, and other bodily fluids in the diagnosis of disease, and physiological pathology, the study of changes in body function due to disease. Finally, medico-legal pathology or forensic pathology, which is the study of disease to ascertain the cause and manner of death. Importance of lesions. What is a lesion? A lesion is a circumscribed area of pathologically altered tissue and or a single patch in a skin disease. Lesions can be anything: boils, tumors, moles, scars, scales, ulcers, or hives. May be the result of disease or a result of injuries or wounds. Generally, the funeral director and embalmer can see the pathological change on the body, and it makes us aware that there is something that we need to be concerned with, whether it be a result of a feeding tube or the result of syphilis. Autopsies or necropsies are a postmortem examination of the organs and tissues of a body to determine cause of death or pathological condition. It is often in the best interest of the community to determine the cause of death. Frequently, it is an investigation into the circumstances of a person's death for legal issues, but there are many other reasons. There are three things that an autopsy does. It confirms or alters the clinical diagnosis and treatment of the disease. They advance medical knowledge and research, and they're used to assist in legal cases to determine the identification of the deceased and the specific cause and manner of death. Which leads us to the cause of death: injury or disease that produces a physiological derangement in the body that results in the death of the individual. So, some common causes of death: gunshot wounds, stab in the chest, lung cancer, blood clot. Followed by a mechanism of death, a physiological derangement produced by the cause of death that results in death. So, bleeding, blood poisoning, faulty heartbeat. The manner of death explains how the cause of death came about. Natural, homicide, accident, or undetermined are examples of manners of death. In trauma-related deaths, we have social manners of death. Stems from human behavior, human interaction, and the environment in which humans live. We also have trauma, the process or event leading to an injury or wound. Drug abuse is the use of mind-altering substances in a way that differs from generally approved medical usage. And there are several classes of drugs: sedatives, stimulants, opioids, cannabinoids, psychedelics, and inhalants. First up, we have cocaine. Extracted from leaves of the coca plant, when formed into crystal, it becomes crack, and crack is more potent. Can be snorted, smoked, swallowed, or injected. Effects of cocaine is the accumulation of dopamine and adrenaline in the nervous system. It starves the heart for blood by constricting platelet aggregation and causes cardiac arrhythmia. Effects are not dependent on dose. So a little bit can cause problems, and a lot can cause maybe little problems depending on the individual. Next up, we have heroin. It's an opiate derived from poppy plants. It is related to morphine. It is typically diluted with talc or quinine, making dose unknown, and it is usually injected. Its effects are hallucination, sedation, and euphoria. Complications of heroin can be sudden death from respiratory and/or cardiac failure. Chronic use causes lung edema, lung abscess, infections, kidney failure, clumping of talc in blood and lungs, and leaves lesions on the body at the sites of injection. Gunshot wounds, well, these vary depending on the type of weapon, the caliber of the bullet, the distance from the weapon, lot of factors when it comes to gunshot wounds. Level of tissue damage is largely determined by the speed or velocity and the size of the bullet. Bullet design also contributes to a level of damage, as does distance of target. Exit wounds are typically larger than entry wounds. Bullets are designed to cause greatest damage by expanding and expending all their energy and tissues, so there may not be an exit wound. The bullet may remain inside the body. Ballistics is the science of the travel of a bullet in flight. Short, high-velocity bullets tumble more rapidly in tissue. And bullets produce damage in three ways. The first is laceration and crushing. Handguns typically cause this damage, and these are typically low-velocity bullets, less than 1,000 feet per second. Cavitation is the cavity caused by the path of the bullet itself, combined with the continued forward acceleration of the tissue in the wake of the bullet, which stretches out the wound. This happens in higher velocity bullets greater than 1,000 feet per second. And lastly, we have the shock wave. Tissues are compressed by shock waves that travel ahead and to the sides of the bullet. They last only a few microseconds and cause little damage at low velocity. A person may not know they've been shot until systemic changes occur as a result of the wound. In addition to the ballistics, the density and elasticity of tissues also plays a factor in how much damage a bullet does. Damage associated with gunshots is related to the density and elasticity of tissues it affects. More damage is done in dense tissues with low elasticity. Fluid-filled organs can rupture, generating pressure in cavities. Bone fragments when shot. Now, important number here, to break skin, it requires at least 163 feet per second, and to break bone, 213 feet per second. Distance considerations. The first is contact wounds, which infers immediate close range. These typically have soot, muzzle imprint, and lacerations. Intermediate to close range wounds have a wider zone of powder stippling but lack imprint and lacerations. And finally, you have distant shots. They lack powder stippling and leave a hole approximately the size of the bullet. There is an association with the type of gun used and the location of injury when it comes to suicide. So handguns are typically used at the right temple, the mouth, and the chest. Rifles, right temple, forehead, and chest. And finally, shotgun, mouth, chest, and under chin. Electrical injuries. Death and injury due to depolarizing of muscles, nerves, and heart and brain function, or burns caused by electricity. Burns occur as a result of friction heating the tissues and are most severe where electricity enters and exits the body. That's very, very important. The burn is most severe where the electricity goes in and where the electricity comes out. So, three categories of electrical injuries. We have lightning. Survival rate is 50%, but this also includes those in persistent vegetative states. So just because you lived through it does not mean that you are going to be at normal function. Burns are not always present and may occur in scrotum or penis in males, bleeding and rupture of eardrums. So there are a variety of places that the burns can occur as a result of the lightning strike. You have high voltage. Poles, sailboat masts, or cranes make contact with overhead high voltage power lines or occupational hazards. And finally, low voltage. Occur most frequently when children bite into electrical cords. Causes severe burns of lips, face, and tongue, and also occurs when an adult becomes grounded while touching appliances or other energized objects. Burns. Destruction of the skin cells, muscles, subcutaneous tissue, or bone by heat. Young, elderly, physically challenged, and mentally challenged are all at risk for burns. If you haven't listened to the embalming lectures, there is a playlist for that, and one thing you will see time and time again is young, elderly, physically, mentally challenged all typically fall into a category of at-risk individuals. So, whenever you see something like young, elderly, or physically challenged, kind of just mentally make a note, it falls into people at risk, and that will always help you remember what parties are part of that group. The severity of a burn is determined by the duration of contact, characteristics of the causative energy source, and the tissue's ability to defend against heat. Death occurs largely as a result of the extent of the burned area, severity of the burn, age of victim, and the presence of inhalation injuries. And this leads to the rule of nines. So when looking at the body at 100%, the head is 9%, arms are 18%, chest is 18%, back is 18%, legs are 32%, so 18% for each leg, and genitalia is 1%. You may be asked to determine what percentage of a body has been burned, and you will need to apply the rules of 9. Head is 9, arms and legs are 18 each, the chest is 18 on the front, the back is 18 on the back, and genitalia is 1%. So what type of burns are there? The first is first-degree burns or superficial burns. This is redness without blisters and skin, and this heals without scarring. Second-degree burns or partial thickness burns, the skin becomes moist, red, and blistered. The damage has reached the dermis, and again, this can heal without scarring. Third-degree burns or full-thickness burns results in necrosis of the epidermis and dermis. You will have charred flesh, and this will heal with scars. And the last version is a fourth-degree burn or complete incineration. This extends deep into tissues, and the tissues may be completely evacuated, leaving only bone. So cremation is an example of a fourth-degree burn. Also in the category of burns is frostbite, and this results as a burn as a result of freezing temperatures. And we typically find these on the extremities, hands, feet, nose, things of that nature. Tissue changes include ice crystal formation, cellular dehydration, protein denaturation, inhibition of DNA synthesis, abnormal cell wall permeability, damage to capillaries, and pH changes. Frostbite typically does not lead to death unless infection sets in. Death may be a result of hypothermia, which occurs when the body core temperature drops below 80 degrees. Stabbing. Well, this is produced by pointed objects. Usually, stabbings are the result of homicide. Common weapon is a knife, but other devices include ice picks, scissors, screwdrivers, broken glass, pens, and pencils. The sharpness of the point determines the ability to pass through skin. Once skin is pierced, it will puncture organs with little difficulty. If great force is used and the full blade enters the wound, the skin may be bruised by the handle. The shape of the wound is determined both by the shape of the blade and the properties of the skin. Skin is stretched during stabbing. The wound will have a short, broad appearance when the skin relaxes. Skin has grains or unique patterns of growth called Langer's lines, which are used during reattachment to lessen scarring. If a stab crosses Langer's lines, the skin will pull apart, causing a gaping wound. And finally, motor vehicle accidents, usually due to impairment of drivers by alcohol, drugs, or combination of the two. Does not need to be illegal drugs. Prescription drugs can contribute. Follow those doctor warnings. Do not operate heavy vehicles or automobiles while taking this substance. Reckless driving, falling asleep, eating, caring for children, reading or talking on the phone, environmental hazards, defective vehicles, or natural diseases increase the risk of a motor vehicle accident. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes Chapter 1 of Pathology Microbiology for Mortuary Science students. We will see you in Chapter 2 in the next video.